I'm Colin Bailey, Deputy Director and Peter J. Sharp Chief Curator at the Frick Collection, and we are standing in one of the most beautiful rooms in any museum anywhere. It's the Fragonard room that was acquired by Mr. Frick in 1915 and installed at the end of 1916, and it's one of the treasures of New York. In this room, we have an assemblage of wonderful furniture, porcelain, sculpture. But the room was created as home to Fragonard's great panels, The Progress of Love. Frick paid $1.25 million for these in 1915, the largest sum he spent on any work of art in the collection. The room has been refurbished, relit. It gives great pleasure. But it has a story that is difficult to understand unless we go back to 1771 and the commission to Fragonard by the Comtesse du Barry, Louis XV's 28-year-old maîtresse en titre. Jeanne Bécu, Comtesse du Barry, was the lover and mistress of the aging Louis XV. She was given a new residence not far from Versailles, and she had the leading architect of the day, Claude Nicolas Ledoux, create a pavilion for her at Louveciennes. He built it within a year, and the best craftsmen, sculptors, artisans, and artists were employed to furnish this pleasure pavilion. Fragonard, Jean-Honoré Fragonard, the great hope of the French school, was given one room to decorate. These were the most important paintings at Louveciennes, and Fragonard, the patron and the architect, chose the story of the progress of love. When we enter the room at the Frick, we have no real idea how these 4 pictures were initially installed. Imagine that we are in Louveciennes, in this horseshoe-shaped salon in the palace overlooking a garden. As you entered the palace, you would see 2 pictures on either side of a window looking into a garden. The first picture you would see was the pursuit. This is the picture that would be straight ahead of you as you entered the room. On the right-hand side of the window, the second picture that you would come to was the meeting, which we see here. Imagine then turning around and walking through the room. On the left-hand side of the door by which you came in was the lover crowned. That's the only picture that is in the spot that it was for Madame du Barry in 1772. And the final picture, the 4th picture on the other side of the entry door, would be love letters, the last picture in the series. So let's recall the order. We start with the pursuit on the left-hand side of the window. Secondly is the meeting on the right-hand side of the window with the garden view in between. Turning around, we see the 3rd picture, the lover crowned, and the picture that ends the series on the right-hand side is love letters. What is Fragonard telling us in this story? Fragonard was trained at the Academy. He was an intelligent, highly trained, visually very alert artist who was comfortable with a whole range of symbols, ideas, emblems, and motifs. He marshals a great deal of this learning in an effortless and beautiful way in the creation of this story. And the story is the progress of love, the 4 ages of love, if you will. In the first picture, a young gallant offers a flower to his would-be mistress. She is running away, but not too fast, and she is surrounded by chaperones. We see in the background a sculpture of a dolphin and 2 putti who are pulling the dolphin back. Sculptures are key to understanding the story in Fragonard's pictures. In this one, we see a dolphin and its putti holding back. Dolphins were Jupiter's agents in love affairs. They were the beasts that he sent to capture the beautiful maidens. In this image, they are symbols of arrested or expectant desire. Desire is in the air, but love is not happening quite yet. In the second picture, the meeting, remember, this would be on the right-hand side of the garden window, and in fact, the young girl is looking into the garden, perhaps at someone or at something that she is unaware of. An assignation is planned. The young man is climbing the ladder into the garden. The girl is definitely aware that he is coming and is looking forward to seeing him. The sculpture here shows Venus, the goddess of love, holding a quiver of arrows away from the young Cupid, the god of love. Love is not quite ready to take place. The god of love is impatient. The goddess of love is holding back. We are not, as it were, quite there yet. Turning around, looking with the garden behind you, we would come to number 3 in the series, the lover crowned. Here, everything is in bloom. The garden is at its most verdant, floral. We can almost smell the scents of the peonies, the roses, the orange tree, the myrtle tree. The lovers, who are being recorded for posterity by the young artist, are actually wearing theatrical costume, the ruffles, the ribbons, the capes. An audience at the time would have recognized this as being stage performing costume. Cupid, on the other hand, has fallen asleep. His little quiver is empty. His work is done. This is the consummation. Love is finally given full expression. And so to conclude the series, the last picture in the series shows love letters. Here, the two lovers, barely aged, in fact, no one is very old in these pictures, no one gets older in these pictures, the two lovers, barely aged, reminisce over their past story together. The girl is seated on an altar of love. Their letters are around them, some of them with their seals visible. The little dog, a symbol of fidelity at the bottom, and a sculpture, the only sculpture in white marble on the right. If we look closely, this is not Venus and Cupid. This is a woman holding a heart to her breast while a young Puto with wings is requesting it. It was a well-known sign of friendship or amity. In other words, once the heart was given once, it remained given for always. For a long time, it was not understood how the story could end in friendship rather than in consummate love. But in fact, in the Enlightenment, in the time that Fragonard was working, many of the most forward-thinking writers talked about how passionate love, pleased and guarded by virtue and fidelity, would end in long and lasting friendship. And this is what Fragonard has given us in the final sequence. In addition to the sculpture and how we can see how the different emblems and motifs lead us through the story, Fragonard is also a master of using landscape. We see in the early painting of the pursuit the growing excitement. Suddenly, trees and flowers are burgeoning in the meeting, but everything is in full bloom once we get to the lover crowned. Finally, in love letters, there's a sense of a contentment, calm. No longer is nature so agitated. The trees are bowed together. There is a sense of peace and fulfillment. As beautiful and as successful as this series of paintings was, hard though it is to believe, once they were hanging, Madame du Barry was not happy with them. In fact, she rejected them. She sent them back to Fragonard. She didn't pay Fragonard for a year's work, and this was a public rejection of his latest and most ambitious painting. It was a hard blow for the artist, who actually left Paris for 1 year, traveling throughout Italy in a way to lick his wounds. It was the last major decorative series that he would ever undertake. Now, 20 years later, after the revolution had just begun, Fragonard and his family went back south to Grasse, the town he was from, and they took with them the 4 pictures for Madame du Barry. They were his most important possessions. Fragonard was the tenant in Grasse in 1790 of a perfume-producing notary cousin, a wealthy bourgeois cousin, whose 17th century villa needed decorating. Fragonard sold his cousin the 4 pictures for Madame du Barry, but the salon in which his cousin hung them was larger than the salon in which they had hung for Madame du Barry, and so Fragonard had to paint a series of overdoors and, more importantly, 2 large panels to complete the series. These pictures, we see immediately, are painted in a different way. Their coloring is more autumnal, more russet-like. Their handling is more abbreviated, slightly sketchier. They have an eroticism that is actually more adult, more pressing than the earlier playful progress of love. In The Triumph of Love, we see an amorous pair of putti embracing, love's fires are burning, and jealousy is being scorned by the figures down below. This picture hung over a fireplace, and so we have a conceit of the flames of the fire lifting up into the picture as it moves to the heavens beyond. But the most significant addition was reverie, which we see here, a young woman in a verdant space under a sundial in a hot afternoon. If we look closely, we can see that the time is 12 o'clock midday. This was known as the hour of the shepherds, the time when amorous swains would leave off their work and take pretty shepherdesses into the fields beyond to make love together. It was a highly charged subject. And in fact, the young woman, whose body language in itself suggests erotic reverie, is thinking about love, is thinking about the pleasures of love, and in fact is introducing us to the series that we see in the room, The Progress. Fragonard's paintings stayed in Grasse for 100 years. Gradually, they became part of a pilgrimage route for anyone interested in the artist. They were finally sold off by the family to J.P. Morgan, the great financier who had them sent to his house in London in Prince's Gate, and in fact built an entire room for them. When Morgan died in 1913, his entire collection, his enormous collection, was sent to the Metropolitan Museum for a memorial exhibition, and the Fragonard room was recreated exactly as it had been in Prince's Gate, his London home. The dealer Duveen very cleverly alerted Frick to the possibility that this series might be available. Frick, who had spent 2 years arguing with his architects about having his house finished on time, did not hesitate for a minute to acquire the series, to bring them to the house, to close the room, and to have the paneling, mirrorwork, locks, all of the decorative surrounds fabricated in Paris during the first years of the First World War. We experienced the room as Mr. Frick and his family experienced it in 1916, but knowing the backstory, as it were, of Fragonard, du Barry, and the disappointments at Louvciennes enriches our understanding of this great room even more.